nice to have you here, and welcome to LaunchPad Live. I'm Trisha Ryan, your host, and we will be about 35 minutes. We do have some time for questions if people want to post them. If we don't have time to get them in, we will follow up and answer your questions. And we want you to know that LaunchPad Live is where we spotlight food and beverage entrepreneurs who are making a difference and actually moving their businesses ahead. I do want to thank our sponsors, which is Culture Advisory Group and Food Processing Skills Canada. And today we're talking with John Snow, and it's about how he co-founded TapScan and what he's learned along the way. So as I mentioned, we will be recording this, and the questions can go into the question box. And just a little bit about John. So nearly 3 decades he spent at Unilever in a global R&D, packaging, procurement, and customer-facing role. And then he embarked on a new direction in 2018. He co-founded Ahead of the Curve, and it's the company behind TapScan. It is a custom digital communications platform that transforms static touch points into live targeted engagement channels. And that sounds like a mouthful. So, and John and I were discussing this just before we got started. So John, since you are the owner of this brand, and it's something many brand owners struggle with, so how would you describe TapScan to our listeners, and specifically to those in the food and beverage industry that are participating in this webinar?
Thanks. Well, thanks for having me, Trisha, and thanks to the Culture Advisory Group for involving me. Yes, it's something that started actually when I was still at Unilever. I was working in the customer-facing side of things in regards to point-of-sale materials and also primary packaging and how it moves through the systems, gets on shelf, and eventually gets home. A lot of the communication that was happening, as those on the call, be it food or beverage or CPG, doesn't matter, your packaging, your point of sale was always very static. You would communicate a message, you'd have a call to action, maybe a couple of calls to action. You would print materials or print your labels, put that into market, and hope that everything was well received and it encouraged purchase at the shelf, and you were communicating the right information. So as part of one of the innovations programs that I was leading, I thought there is a better way to be able to communicate more often without having to change print, without having to change your point of sale displays and things like that. So got involved in creating dynamic QR or NFC, but QR, and let's stay with that, to be able to allow marketing or those in supply chain that want to track assets to be able to communicate more than just what's on the print to the consumers and shoppers.
So if you were to give a live example, like a cereal or a snack food, they have the TapScan code on the package. What then is the flexibility with that? And we were talking about even the new rules around what has to be on the front of package with regards to sodium, sugar, and fats right now. How could we use something like TapScan to not get around, but to support that this yogurt is still a good product, or this cereal or cheese, because now it has to say it's high in fat or high in sodium, those kinds of things. What could we use TapScan for?
Yeah, it's basically it's whatever message you really want to communicate to your. I'll differentiate between the two, a shopper and a consumer. They tend to be sometimes the same, but sometimes they're different. So what this would allow, and especially with GS1, with Sunrise 2027 coming down the road, QR codes will be on pack, and they'll be used, and they'll be transitioning over to QRs to be read at the scanners, just like a barcode. It's going to provide the machine the number of that product, that specific SKU, and give it the information. What we enable is that it provides that, but it provides a person who scanned it any information that the brand wants to tell. If it's the story of, where it was sourced and how ethically it was sourced. If it's about, it's certified. it's certified this way. You'll see some packages have, umpteen certification marks on them, and I would guess and that most people don't know what those certifications even represent. You could easily explain that. When they scan, they could tap the certification. It could give you a description of that certification. It could tell you how to use the product, recipes for whatever it is you're doing, or just even messaging that you want to do on what you're doing yourself as a business or your brand is doing within the community or on some other sustainability type of initiative. So it's basically a communication platform that goes beyond the limitations of the real estate of your label or the real estate of your point of sale materials. And the story is yours to tell.
It can also be regionalized, and we're talking small, like I can do North York and sorry, Toronto, I don't mean to just pick on you, but having been there, but we had that discussion. So explain to me the regionality. It's not English, French.
Okay, so yes, so beyond then, okay, communication being one, some of the capabilities, that you've just touched on, Tricia, it will automatically put your message into French speaking. So in Canada, you scan the same code, your messaging or your recipes or whatever the message you're communicating is in French. If that product was also sold in the US, it could be in Spanish. It can be in any language that you choose that you want it to do. And that's all automatically read on the scan. So it's not like you have to translate. And you get provided that communication or that engagement in your language. We can geolocate. We could provide a different message for North Toronto versus South Toronto, Cobourg versus North York, by season, by day, down to the minute. You may want to communicate a message to shoppers in store on a Monday afternoon because the shopper's in a different mode than you do to a consumer on a Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock. So it's got all kinds of flexibility to accommodate your message and what you want to deliver, when you want to deliver it, and also like where you want to deliver it.
So you've told me what is consumer facing opportunities right now in our 4 minutes, but tell me what the brand people achieve out of this other than flexibility of messaging, because there's a tie back, is there not, in terms of it's like a market research tool or?
Yes. So whatever the consumer or shopper engages with within your communication. So if I was interested in understanding this about this certification, well, that gets recorded, and you'll know there was a English speaking person at this location at 2 o'clock in the afternoon interested in that certification or in this recipe combination or whatever it is that they're engaging with. So within the engagement itself, you're tracking, recording, and providing that data back to the brand team to understand what part of my communication is being received or is being used. From there, it's basically a way for the consumers and shoppers to feed back to brand live, what they're interested in or what they want to learn. The ability with geolocation is, let's say you had a package and it's a food product sold at Loblaws. Within our system, we have all the Loblaws addresses. So if someone scans it at a Loblaws address, our system can then assume that it's a shopper engaging with that product. If it's not at the Loblaws address or at a retail location, the assumption can be now it's a consumer. So you can start to distinguish between shopper interests and consumer interests. You take that data in and you start to use that. No one's interested in this communication piece we're doing. Great, that's a learning. Take it out. They're really interested. I notice our recipes are really, these ones are getting a lot of attention. Change it, maybe not, or it's not getting as much attention as the recipes from last month because it's dynamic. You could change recipes by season, summertime versus wintertime and things like that. And you can start to see which ones are actually more impactful or more read or engaged by the consumers and shoppers. That then shapes, what you want to do to communicate moving forward. And you use it dynamically as a tool. to not just do one time. It's not once and done. A lot of QR codes, especially when QRs first came out, they got a bad rap because people looked at it, did the QR experience, delivered it. It would end, but the consumers may still be scanning it, and you get error pages, you get not live and or out of date. It's like having a website that's out of date. You can actually impact your brand negatively if you deliver that. So having that ability to keep it live, keep it relevant. Someone scans in Toronto, you could have a banner of what the latest Blue Jay adventure is, if you're interested in things like that. Or the big callback on, especially on foods, and one I'd like to raise in case it doesn't come in, another one is, if you had an issue, I'm not suggesting anyone would, but if you did have an issue and you needed to inform a consumer that maybe that product does have a concern and you need to do something with it, that as soon as they scan, that can be front and center. There can be a recall banner that says, you've got an issue, and please take this back to your retailer to get compensated or whatever, and communicate that directly to the person at time of need, point of use.
Very cool. So take us back to the beginning. I mean, you said at Unilever, you knew that this was kind of something coming, and I kind of feel QR codes had their day with COVID. We all got into it, whether we wanted to or not. So what was the problem you were obsessed with in trying to unravel for the brand people with pursuing this?
The big, I guess I call it one of our challenges, and it exists for us today too, is understanding that the capability for brands and especially marketeers, they have their toolbox, their suite of what they do and how they do things. And this is something still new, even though we're 8 years out, it's still new. To be able to change a message live at any time or by time of day isn't something that you're trained to be able to work with. So that's probably one of the hardest pieces to get people to understand. One, you can do it. Two, how you do it. And then three, what you actually do with that information. The challenge on their side is everyone has a full plate. I've got to do my job and do this. And this type of communication tool isn't, as I say, a one and done. I put a lot of energy into doing my label, getting it done, getting this ready for launch, and I put it out there. You have that period now where I'm out, you're tracking the results and the sales and everything else, but you've got that work done, and it's done. I'm planning my next, what am I going to do for a relaunch or whatever it is, but you're done. This adds a different element in that, I'm finding in my messaging from last week in Quebec, people aren't looking at this, or they're not even engaging this, or they're not even engaging with the code itself. There's always dynamic feedback happening. And what do you do with that? It's a job and it's work, and it's something you need to plan in regards to, how you're moving forward. And that's probably, when I was at Unilever and even now in our discussions, that's probably one of the big areas that, we try to educate on, but it's one of those things you need the receivers to, to kind of come to that conclusion. One, the work will be worthwhile because I'm going to be able to communicate in a way with shoppers and consumers that I've never been able to communicate with in that way before.
So we do have all different sizes of people that we work with at Culture and Food Processing Skills Canada, and small to large entrepreneurs. This isn't something just, initially when you started, did you go for the big customers? Everybody wants that. Everyone wants a listing in Loblaws or whatever. But is there a customer story or moment that shows small and large are both a fit for your brand?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Everyone wants the big one, right? If you're putting products out there, I'm getting on shelf at a Loblaws, getting on, into Amazon, whatever. Oh, this is great. And with large comes large requirements, I'll call it, or a large amount of work. They tend to take a long time to get on, to bring on board. There's a lot of decision makers, especially in a space like ours. And if you're producing food items or you have things a little more focused and specific in how you target in our area, because it can touch on different aspects, you end up having different groups. So in large companies, there is customer marketing, there's brand marketing, there's sales, there's, supply chain, and you end up having to deal with many. And once you have many, as all, after, as I say, 28 years with Unilever, the more people, the more decisions take in length. I find the smaller companies are able to be a lot more nimble, faster on decision making, especially if the owners and or the lead people in it take interest and want to do this, then things move quicker. We enable competitive advantage, actually sustainable competitive advantage. And I say at this level and at this time, because we're still, although I say 8 years in, we're still very much like a startup, and we're still growing and trying to do. Saying that, we have smaller companies that we engage with, all the way up to large. Amazon is our largest and biggest client. So we have a engagement experience with them all. But for new ones, I would say big ones look really, really good, and you always think of, that's going to be millions of dollars of stuff. But with that, they're very demanding, take a lot of work, and they can ultimately cause you to perhaps miss an opportunity with someone, a smaller opportunity, or things that you could move quicker on, build your knowledge with, build your experience with, build case studies with. In your case, because you're selling products to consumers, getting that consumer, trust in your brand and in the value that you bring them faster that way. Maybe not in the million scope with the large ones, but you can certainly build from ground up. And that's not always easy, because when the big guys take an interest, you tend to try to drop and roll to get it. But that can have a negative too.
Has a consumer used your product service and almost made it that other people want to put it on their brands because of the insights and everything that the consumer got trained to get all this information from your coding, and if I was looking for gluten-free or whatever, and to see that it's got the certification, whatever. Is it working that way too?
I would love to say yes, massively. Is it working? Yes. So when people see it in markets and they experience it, it's like anything. I think you physically try something, and then you then start to trust it more. If I look at Amazon, we've been doing their products, Mexico, Canada, and United States, their in-store products for 4 years now. And I can't, I mean, the beginning stages, it's not Field of Dreams. Put it there and everything's going to come and happen. It doesn't. It takes education. It takes time, trust. Why am I going to take the time to scan that code? Last time I scanned a code, if you go to Staples and scan the codes that they have on their shelf, and the last audit we did, I think 42% of them came up with a 404 error. So how many times do you have to get that before you say, I'm not going to scan? It takes time to build it. For those that are going to use this, you need to also communicate that you're doing it. The one area that makes a big difference is letting the consumers know that you've done this, communicated on whatever, with any messaging that you're putting out. If you have advertising in magazines or other areas, or just in your communication at trade shows, let them know, hey, by the way, when you engage our product, you're going to get the latest updates on where we're sourcing, or the latest information on what we've done or how you can use it, and let them know that way that there's value in doing this. And it's valuable to you. It's not going to just be, stuff about something that's not important. It's live. It's information that we know you're going to use because we're taking information from all the scans and applying that. So letting people know is really key.
So when you think about, where you started, and then as you keep, because you have a number of years under your belt and you're still learning. What was sort of as a founder's journey? Was there a pivot point, a hurdle? Was there something you hadn't thought about originally that now is becoming the lead service that the QR code now provides for brand people?
I'd say there were, let's just say when you say hurdle, there was more hurdles than, unlike on TV, there's not just the 8 or whatever it is. There's a few more, so always expect more. I think that it's been a longer journey, and I think it's more of a learning on our side of how we communicate out and how do we get the message of what the capability is and how easy it is to apply, the cost structure associated, and making sure that that's clear and that it's not expensive to do, has been one of the key things that we continue to work on. It hasn't stopped. We haven't got the magic equation in place just yet. We're getting better all the time. I think the world is changing too. The way companies are engaging things like this, technologies. As you said, COVID, horrible time, but for our business like ours, and then the drive of QR, I'd have to say we'll take the positives that brought for our business, but I think things are changing. The fact that everyone has a computer in their hand, actually more often, I mean, even when they're walking down the street, I started counting people now on not which ones have a phone, which ones don't have a phone as they're walking their dog or whatever they're doing. But you have all that power in your hand now, and you've got a lot more information available to you. And what this does is it concentrates the information that a brand or a product wants to provide specifically to whoever's engaging it. It's not go on Google or ask Alexa, hey, I'm looking at such and such product. Can you tell me about it? Scan this and you're going to get specific information that the brand wants to provide somebody that wants to engage.
So when you first started with your partner, and I know you've got a group that you work with now, was there a throw in the towel movement, or was it sort of you believed in it and you kept going? Was there some tough, did COVID kill you?
We've had some lean times because with a lot of companies, it's almost like anything. With COVID or any of these, even with the latest, with the tariff things and people and how they spend their money, of course, that has an impact on it. So yes, during COVID, there were dips, and you have to brace yourself for them. And if you believe in what it is you're doing, and that what you're doing is going to add value, truly add value, if it's just selling it for the sake of selling it and getting revenue. I think that was one of the key things for my partner and I, is that we've always believed that what we're doing is a good thing to do, that it is a successful tool, and that kind of kept us going. There were some lean times, and but yeah, we stuck with it and continue to grow now.
So is there a piece of advice you would give someone who's in that 0 to 2 years, to keep, what keeps you going? Did you guys get, yourself a mentor? What resources did you, or was just long in the tooth, we're going to be okay?
Perseverance, I suppose. It's probably very similar to what I just said. I think we just believed. It maybe sounds corny. I don't mean it to. We truly believe in what it is we were doing, and they were lean times, but they weren't like desperate times, which is fortunate. I know there's those times when it gets to a point where you really may not have an option. For us, we've yeah, we were able to just, you know what, look into that strong headwind and plow forward, because we know things are going to be better and will be better. So if you truly believe in what it is you're doing, if you're draining out, don't be silly. But if you truly believe in what you're doing and you think it's something that just needs to be weathered, a storm to be weathered or whatever, stick with it.
So thinking about being a founder, is there things they worry too much about and things they don't worry enough about when you look at the balance sheet on what you should and shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, everything's a little different. All I know is don't get too complacent. Always keep an eye on what's happening around you. Everyone always focuses, do competitor study, this and that, and focus on your competitors. Be open to other areas that maybe you're selling and it's a health food in a certain segment. You need to stay focused on maybe other healthcare providers in a certain segment. Branch out, keep an eye on other things that happen, even totally different areas, what's happening in electronics, what's happening in other developments and other innovations that are taking shape in other markets, so that you're always kind of aware. Prepare for those times when things maybe aren't so good. And within your team, because I'm guessing most are like us, we're not a big company, we're not hundreds of people or anything. Make sure the people that are on your team are like yourself and they believe in what they're doing. And we've been very, very fortunate in that with the group we have at Ahead of the Curve, that the people around you truly believe in what it is you're bringing, be it a product or a service. And if you're doing the right thing, it'll work.
So if you had to choose one word that sums up the journey, what would it be?
One word. Enjoyable. More enjoyable times than less enjoyable times. Hard to put one word to it because I'd like to say challenging as well. It's a tough one to put a word to, because depending on the day and when you ask me, I might change that word. And for those that know me, that word may not be one I want to use on a webinar. So, it's enjoyable. And when it stops being enjoyable, again, almost like the earlier question on those challenges and how do you get through them? If it stops being enjoyable, then maybe it's time to stop.
So we got to remember to have fun. That's what you're saying. In the midst of being an entrepreneur in our journey. So if I wanted to tie this together in about, you've got this wonderful QR code that the consumer can use and the brand person can use to have many conversations regionally, in different languages, in different countries. And there is a lot of data that can come back from feedback, and there's a lot of data the consumer can use to understand the brand or the product, the ingredients, the recipes, the applications, all in this tiny little thing that is affordable based on what you've said, and not mega millions to have. And anything else you'd want to add to that kind of description of
thank you you've summed it up better than I probably could have. Just again, a reminder that with Sunrise 2027 coming, and packaging, bringing in QRs along with UPC codes, that it is a great opportunity to get a jump on things, communicate more, and bring more to your consumers and shoppers than just your static label or your static display does. And if anyone's interested to learn more,
So where do they find you, John, aside from John Snow on LinkedIn?
You can try that one at TapScan, and if we're putting something out, we'll put the website in there. If you go to tapscan.info or Ahead of the Curve group, it will be there, and there's a contact us, and please reach out, or via LinkedIn is perfectly great as well.
So we're at 1:29, and I try to keep these to about 30 minutes. And with respect to any questions, Jenna in our background, thank you, will be organizing them all. I'll get them to John and we'll get that information out. So if you are building your own food and beverage brand, I guess you have to ask yourself what you're living right now and what your word might be. But remember to have fun based on our guest suggestion. So I want to thank you, John, very much for this and participating in LaunchPad Live. And watch for our next conversation with David Spadafora of Burt's Foods. He's got a very interesting story coming from the construction industry and going to a farmer's market and deciding to get into the food business. So he has a journey not so different from John's, a little bit longer than you think, but always growing and learning. And that's really the purpose of LaunchPad Live. So thank you again to our sponsors, Culture Advisory Group, Food Processing Skills Canada, and John, thank you very much. I learned a lot just doing this, and now I can recommend the brand now that I have a better understanding. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.